Hello, and welcome to this Techarati interview series ahead of Data Center World on the 8th and 9th of March at Excel London. I'm Stuart Crowley, Closer Still Media's Global Content Manager and Editor of Techarati. Today, my guest is Astrid Wynne Rogers. She is the Head of Sustainability at Techbuyer and Interact, as well as part of the judging panel for the Data Center World Awards that is taking place on the 8th of March. Welcome, Astrid.
Thank you very much for having me.
At the event, you're going to be talking about certifications. So what do you feel is the biggest challenge, the data center sustainability challenge regarding certification for C-level executives and data center professionals, perhaps within the next 12 months?
The biggest single challenge, I would say, is a carbon reductions plan. I think that there is increasing awareness that offsetting is no longer acceptable within the market, not just for data centers, but for the entire business landscape. People are requesting net zero pledges, and that's a challenge because you really have to demonstrate increased efficiencies, use of green energy, carbon reduction over time, and milestones towards that. The UN released a report that coincided with COP27, which just made it clear that we don't just make pledges anymore, we have to substantiate them. And that's very, very difficult to do in a complex supply chain like the data center. You're going to have to look at your scope 3 emissions very, very carefully. Some of that information will not be easily available, and you're going to have to really engage with your supply chain to get product declarations and everything as part of that. That is a challenge, but it's one that I think is worth taking. Because it will increase the reputation as the sector and allow the sector to progress to demonstrate that it's a net positive in terms of sustainability actions, because it can say that it's offsetting the emissions of other industries and it's doing the best that it can with its own emissions.
With that complexity of the supply chain, how could that be overcome, or how could a data center operator mitigate those challenges that might face them with the complexity?
In terms of engaging with the supply chain, I think it's just asking the right questions repeatedly and then looking for alternative suppliers if necessary. In construction, for example, you could look to green steel instead of virgin steel in the construction process, and you could look for lower carbon alternatives in terms of concrete. They may not be the easiest solutions to source, but the data center sector is in a privileged position in that it's quite a large buyer. So it's in a position to make a positive change there. Some architects are reluctant to use green steel because of the lack of standards associated with it. However, that's an opportunity, I think, for this sector to lead the way.
Based on your experience, what do you think perhaps is the biggest benefit or biggest opportunity for this evolving sustainability space in the data center world?
Circular economy would be a good example of a frontier that could be pushed better. So heat reuse or combined heat and power would be a massive opportunity, not just for data center efficiencies and change, but also for efficiencies on a community level and a societal level. There's been quite a lot of criticism of the sector for being a sink of energy and materials. So that's a way of countering that and demonstrating that you can live in synergy with the communities around you. And then also other, circular economy approaches, like, for example, circular economy in the IT hardware. Coming from the background that I have, I know that's very, very possible. And it allows us to reduce the impact of mining on critical raw materials. And it also allows us to have an impact on electronic waste, but also, again, demonstrate best practice to the rest of society. If data centers can do it, as the clues in the name, data centers, then that shows enterprises, it shows businesses that this is best practice if managed correctly, if you understand the energy draw, if you understand the materials, if you understand your components, if you've got a more mechanical approach to upgrading systems and making them work for you, and also cascading assets into other organisations with lower compute needs, finding best quality recyclers that will recover the maximum amount of materials. I think these are really areas that are opportunities for data centres, especially when nascent recycling technologies are looking for critical mass in order to develop. So we've got a whole lot of technologies on the horizon with chemical extraction, with bio leaching, with pyrolysis. All of these require critical mass, and the data centres are in a great position to really kickstart those recycling technologies. The other thing that I like about circular economy, and I would say this, having worked in it for a while, is that it actually has a massive positive impact on your operations as well. So what circular economy is about is designing out waste. And people most often think about that in terms of materials. So we're designing out waste in our materials flows, but it's also with energy. So if you calculate the energy efficiency of your machinery and you make sensible decisions about which ones are drawing too much energy for the compute power that you need, or which machines could be upgraded to be much more efficient just with the addition of memory or CPU upgrades without stripping out the entire server estate, you immediately realize massive energy and cost savings within a very short space of time. That's circular economy. It's not necessarily tree hugging and let's all wear knitted sandals. This is about sensible business decisions that people can take today, which are just recognizing that we're no longer living in a time of plenty.
How do we balance the need for energy efficiency and sustainability with the need for, say, scalability and cost effectiveness in the data center world? Can they go hand in hand? How can they be balanced, or are they in conflict?
I don't think they necessarily are in conflict. I think if you think about things sensibly in terms of let's just measure with what we've got and think what we want it to deliver, and how long we want it to deliver for, and whether it's resilient to changes over time, then you're making sensible decisions which are they're good business decisions. They're saying, how do we scale this without it falling over? That's basically what you're doing. And that's just sustainability in some different clothing. I think the way that people address this is going to require time, and it's going to require thought, and it's going to require systems change and change of habits and behaviours, because we can't rely on the blueprint that we've worked to so far, because the landscape's changing. And not only is the landscape changing, we're also looking at a sector that's expected to grow 500% globally by 2050. So we really need to make that work. And it's about redesigning our thinking to make things more effective long term. If you're looking at energy efficient buildings, then you're going to save money over the lifetime of that building. That just makes sense. And I think the counterpoint to that is, I don't think there's a lot of choice. I think that this is going to come whether people are proactive about it or whether people are reactive about it. I think we're already seeing a growing awareness that data centers use an awful lot amount of energy and loads of materials. People know that now, and people are recognizing that now. And it's about whether the sector says, yes, absolutely, but we understand this and we can help you realize changes across the board, or whether it kind of hunkers down and tries to operate with business as usual and comes up against challenges as a result.
You mentioned changing habits as well. What is possibly one of the biggest bad habits that you experience in the data center world with it relating to sustainability? Is there a bad habit in particular that really gripes you?
a reluctance to consider change. Okay. We find that quite a lot when my colleagues go in with Interact and they do this energy analysis on servers, and they say, well, you've got this in your estate, there are these makes and models, and this is how energy efficient each one of those is. And if you migrate these workloads onto these servers here and shut those off, then you've immediately got hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of saving within the next few weeks. People can be reluctant to do that because they don't want to challenge their own managers, or they don't want to be seen to have done the wrong thing. And there's a reluctance to sort of grab hold of opportunities and see change as a good thing, that we're in a better place at the end of it, because it's worked effectively in the previous landscape for so long that people haven't considered these other savings that they can make in terms of, energy efficiency or materials efficiency. Like, everybody understands PUE. It's been around for a long time. There's been loads and loads of progress that has been made in terms of PUE, and that's a nice, happy story. And then when you flag the fact that there might be something behind that there might be an additional saving to be made, that's a bit scary sometimes. Again, with combined heat and power, you're going to have to change the way that your contracts operate with your wider communities. That's tricky, because then you're hitting a barrier in other people's willingness to change. You're going to have to cooperate with town councils, or, you're going to have to cooperate with hotel groups. You're going to have to cooperate with their business as usual as well. And integrating all that massive behaviour change into multiple systems is incredibly challenging.
What is the solution to that? Is it working with maybe an external provider that can help negotiate with those sort of things?
Yeah, I'd say, there are external providers that make it their business to understand the mechanics of this, and who will attempt to negotiate contracts on your behalf and make it work. I think it's also maybe re-education of the sector with events like this, with free training that's available on, for example, net zero plans. If that's kind of integrated into the business community and everybody understands why we're doing this and how it fits into a much broader plan and what best practice is when it comes to, carbon reductions or energy reductions, then everybody's following the same rule book, and that would make it easier as well.
At Data Center World, you'll be talking about certification. So why do you think that is important for people to learn about and strive to obtain as well?
Because it provides you with a framework to unify your efforts. So the ISOs are a process of continuous improvement. So it just keeps it on everybody's radar in quite a structured way. And there's quite a lot of work that has been done on developing or adapting standards, particularly for data centers. So by people who've been in the industry a long, long time and understand how the sector works. Something like a net zero plan is really important because it aligns you with the rest of the business world and with government. It really helps us pull all in the same direction. And also because they provide a framework where everybody's thinking is channeled in the same way, that helps with behaviour change. Because when you disseminate that into organisations and people understand what's going on, they understand the rationale behind it, and it becomes hopefully second nature that they should be considering these things. Health and safety is a great example. I'm pretty sure that we've moved beyond a situation in which somebody with a hard hat is coming around and pointing at people, to a situation in which everybody's aware that there are certain things that have to be done to protect ourselves and the people around us. That's just how we operate now. And I think these frameworks, these standards, these certifications are a way of doing that for sustainability as well.
Do you think there could be mandates on obtaining certain certifications, or mandates on data centers having to report their emissions or anything like that?
I definitely think data centers are going to have to report their emissions. So if you look at streamlined energy and carbon reporting, that's for any company over 250 people, 36 million turnover, and or 18 million on the ledger. That's not a large company, and that's every company in the UK, and that's part of your company's house reporting. This is not a nice to have sustainability report on the back of that. At the moment, that's going to 1 and 2, but then you've got ESOS waiting in the wings, so Energy Savings Optimisation Scheme, which is now looking at Scope 3 and a reductions plan. You look at what's happening in public sector tenders, they're asking for carbon reductions plan as a pre-qualification to the tender. So this is happening. Behind that, you've got TCFD, which is Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, which is anything to do with investment. And then you've got the EU taxonomy, which I'm sure you've got other speakers who will give you more details on, but it basically means that money won't come out of the EU unless you can demonstrate reductions in energy usage and carbon usage over time. That is all coming. And I don't see why the data center sector would be exempted from that. In fact, I'd say it's very likely not likely to be exempted from that. So that is going to happen. It
sounds like the time is now to really start acting on these things, because it's in the near future. So I think with that in mind, why do you feel it's important for people to come to events like Data Center World and also come to your session on sustainability certification?
I think people should come back to live events because when you get up out of your chair and off a screen, you'll find 10 things out on the way to a meeting that you never knew before. If you're in a hall full of that many people with that many areas of expertise, you're going to find an awful lot of incidental information by attending a live event. And it's also going to, I think, make you a happier person, because I think that we get something from face-to-face meetings that we don't get from screen meetings. I think people should attend this talk because I have some experts on the panel who helped write the pieces of regulation that we're talking about. So if you want to hear how these work, these are some of the best people to explain that. And also because I have heard that there's evidence that if that memories are tied to place as much as to time. And if you tie your memories on what regulations you need to a time and a place, you're more likely to have greater retention of that. So you'll get more out of the work talk in simple terms if you sit in a room, and you'll have some nice conversations at the same time.
Thank you, Astrid, for taking the time today to have a chat with us. And also, people can get their free ticket now to see you at Data Center World on the 8th and 9th of March.
Thank you, Stuart, and I look forward to seeing you there.